This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stockbox interview. Darren Hazelwood, the CEO of Panther Metals, is joining me today following news from the company's Australian side of the business. So Darren, welcome to Stockbox. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Thank you very much for your time. So you've had some news, the appointment of brokers and the Australian capital raise. So the business over there in Australia progressing as per the plan.
Absolutely. I'm delighted to have Sanlam Private Wealth on board and Kerr Allen Financials. You know, Sanlam especially, they're known across the world. Their offices in London. They're South African originally and in Australia. Kerr Allen, with their knowledge of the Australian markets, to have this in place, and it's showing the market in Australia is supporting the strategy laid out by Panther Metals, and we're executing on that strategy. And we've been very clear to the market on what we want to do, why we're going there, why we're doing it. And now you can see a clear path to that happening. And it's all roads now lead to the listing, Mark, and the raising of the $5 million.
Okay, excellent. So, of course, Panther Metals has reduced its holding in the Australian vehicle now. Will that continue to be the case as it progresses down to the IPO?
Yeah, as I've previously stated, that the aim has always been that the outcome will be Panther own approximately 37% of the listed vehicle on listing. The vehicle is funded, so the assets out there, that the nickel we know we've already got without just on historic works and the review of historic data. We know we've got 30 to 50 million ton nickel and cobalt target, and that nickel's grading sort of 0.7, 0.8%. And they're now going to be funded to attack that. They've got the red flag area, that's very prospective for nickel as well. And of course, you've got the gold target, the gold anomaly that we discovered, along with all the historic grades. And it's easy to forget that there are drill holes there of 46.5 grams a ton over 8 meters. Numbers that are just, if they were released today in a drill hole, people would be going absolutely nuts for them. And this area, some of the areas have been worked. The new gold anomaly has never been worked. And it's about now piecing together the property and the resources and just driving on. But they're going to be funded to drive it on. So once the listing's done, it's going to be straight on the ground for them. They'll be able to drill. We've got a stake that could have a significant impact for Panther Metals and their shareholders. And it's all funded through Australia. And you know, the impact on Panther Metals PLC balance sheet, of course, will be substantial as well. And we've done this so that we're not. There's only so many assets you can work in the right way in this industry, and this will give them the funding and the pathway to work these assets properly, enabling us to then work our Canadian side properly and go for the discovery that we're also working so diligently and hard to get.
Okay. Well, as you mentioned, Canada and the Canadian projects, the focus now will, of course, be with your projects over there in Canada. Can you remind investors of the opportunity in the projects there and any latest developments that you'd like to update us on?
Yeah, well, all the Canadian assets are based in Ontario. The headline asset of old really would be the Big Bear project. Stunning project. It's got grades that, as I've said before, are simply phenomenal. That they range from a processed ton of 1,564 grams per ton, and samples from surface. It's well into double. I've never counted them, but you're looking at 20, possibly 30 at surface samples, historic grades in three figures: 100 grams a ton, 200 grams a ton, 300 grams a ton, 400 grams. You've got a whole host of adits on site. Now, what these are basically little mines. So The old timers, what they would do, they would find a gold-bearing vein on surface, and they would effectively follow it. So they will follow it underground as far as they could, and then it would stop. I've actually had the pleasure of going down one of these, and then they're quite remarkable thing. And the Big Bear, we are very, very, very happy with the prospectivity of that project. It really, we've done a lot of work on the ground. We've put it together. That sort of puzzles really come. Now what we're doing, we've had some drill permits in. They've been in application for the best part, but in fact, over 18 months now. And that's part of that's linked to COVID, part is linked to First Nations. And where we believe actually that we've made significant progress with the First Nations, and now what we're looking to do is really solidify that relationship now that COVID's restrictions on travel and meeting have eased off somewhat in the UK and Canada, and there'll be more news on that in the future, I'm sure. And then you're over at Dotted Lake. Dotted Lake, we are literally about to start our maiden drilling program. We've got a trench that's shown some very, very, very good gold grades. And we're also having a look at the stratigraphy, because we believe that this Dotted Lake sits on a big fold that, if you have a look at Generation Mining, they say on their website, it's the biggest non-producing asset, platinum, palladium, copper asset in North America. They are looking to start the mine build around this time next year, and they've got some fantastic numbers that people really should have a look at. And they're based on copper at 330, which obviously is significantly higher than that, and it's a lower platinum price, lower palladium, but they're still coming out with a net return sort of like I believe $823 million, and they've had really good recent drilling success that's actually only going to add to that. And when you really knuckle down and have a look at Generation Mining, you look at we're on the same fold, you can see why we're doing this why we're going so deep. It's about stratigraphy. And then the other side of us, you've got the guys that are there. They've had a lot of success with their drill holes on the Tycho project, and we sit bang in the middle. So it's going to be a really interesting moment, an interesting development in the life of Panther. We know we're drilling for a gold-bearing shear zone. We just don't know what we're going to then hit underneath that shear zone, and we don't even know the depth of that shear zone. So one of the most telling holes that we'll ever drill in terms of learning and understanding the geology around Dotted Lake. But everything so far has been positive. Everything that's happened along this fold just seems to be growing and extending, and we're right to the heart of it. So it's an exciting moment, and I can't wait for that to be happening. And then of course, then we look over at the greenstone belt of Abonga. Now Abonga is going to be slightly different. It's a whole greenstone belt. It's 60,000 acres we've got there, nearly 60,000. You've got various targets on Abonga, and we're in the process of arranging for we're putting a trail, and that's going to run for approximately 30 kilometers. What that's going to act as is like the M1 for us, because there are so many targets on Abonga that once this trail's in, then we can use that, effectively build our junctions within that trail, so that you're no longer relying on helicopter or plane access. We're just straight on the ground. We can get to where we want. We've only got shorter trails to then install on the project area. But this trail initially is going to go all the way to the Wishbone project. And as we've already talked about in the market, we're looking at Wishbone. Everything geologically points to some very interesting happenings in this area. We know that BHP Bilton thought that this was a high priority area, but they drilled approximately 700 meters too far to the north. and it was also drilled by another company sort of about 800 metres too far to the south. We know that through the development of modern technology. This happened in the early 90s. And with what we've been able to ascertain is that really the interesting stuff is happening slap bang in the middle. And we all know that historically it's at least the third person on a project that makes that initial discovery. And that kind of resonates across the whole industry. So listen, hopefully we're going to remain on par. And that's what we're going for. But we'll be drilling between 1,200 and 1,800 metres on that. But then you've got the awkward target on Abonga. You've got Tommy Howe. You've got 4 other unnamed targets. There are stuff that we're finding there all the time. There's on the eastern side of the Greenstone Belt. There's a really interesting hole where they hit massive sulfides and the hole finished in disseminated sulfides. But that hole, and it's on a mag high, but that hole was only drilled to 45 metres at 45 degrees. So it only actually went down 22.5 metres in reality. So just one thing after another on Abonga, which confirmed its prospectivity. And you can't nail Abonga down to one area. But look, we've got to start somewhere. Wishbone's ready to drill. We'll be drilling it. The permits are in place, and this will be happening this year.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Darren Hazelwood, the CEO of Panther Metals, for giving us a bit of an update on what's going on across the portfolio.
That's a pleasure, Mark. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for listening to this Stockbox interview. For more information, interviews and videos, visit our website at stockboxmedia.com or give us a follow on Twitter by searching @StockboxMedia.